Warning, this video will contain spoilers for The Walking Dead Season 7, Episode 2, The Well, so just be cautious as you go ahead and watch this video. What is going on, everyone? This is NinjaGeek here, and welcome back to another Walking Dead video review. And this week, we kind of get a step back from what we had last week. It's kind of more of a refresher. We'll talk about it as we go further and progress into the episode, but it's kind of a breather from what we obviously got last week. And of course, if you missed my review on last week's episode, you can catch that in a card on your screen right now. But anyways, let's get into the start of this video. So obviously, Carol and Morgan have absolutely no idea of what anything happened with the Saviors or Negan himself. And we know that Morgan and Carol know about the Saviors, but we don't know, or they don't know, that what Negan did to the Alexandrian group, their Rick's group, essentially. So it's kind of, it's interesting to see how Carol is perceiving what has happened to her and what she's trying to do, but what will also happen when she finds out from Rick, eventually, I believe so, when she finds out from Rick that, two people died, two major characters died, from Negan, and she'll probably end up going on revenge and attack mode. But right now we can see her trying to recover from what happened, and she's seeing everything in a weird way, and I love the editing style that was put into this, because it's like she is seeing the walkers either vice versa, coming to life and being real people and dying, or a real person then turns into a walker. It's her vision playing tricks on her, and she's kind of in a state of just like, she just doesn't know what is even going on, especially since we just find out about the kingdom and get into the kingdom and all of that. And it's just really interesting to see the style of editing that they chose to do for that, to portray how Carol is seeing things as delusional as she is right then in that state. So we finally get to see our first glimpse at the kingdom and how people in the kingdom are, everything in the kingdom, King Ezekiel, and just comparing the kingdom to Alexandria, the Alexandrians, and even Negan with the Saviors. It's a really completely different lifestyle, especially with Ezekiel and his tiger Shiva, which, by the way, they showed a lot on how Shiva was used in during The Walking Dead. And I don't think ever that they've had to ever create something, as Greg Nicotero stated, that they never had to create something living like that before in such a fashion, because of course they can't have a live tiger on set. That just would not end up well. And with the animatronics and visual effects that they did use, it really does look really stunning how stunning the tiger actually looks in this show. The Walking Dead Seasons 1 and 2 were not all that gory or bloody. Season 3 started to get a little bit more, and then really during Season 4 through now, they've been really improving the way that how graphic the show can get, especially since we saw what happened in last week's episode, and they've really amped it up. So I'm really excited to see and look forward to anything that happens in the future for the show, because of course we know the show is renewed for Season 8 as well, so that's going to be interesting to see what more they could push the limits to as far as effects, visual effects, and even editing goes. We've met King Ezekiel for the first time, and how is he as a ruler? How is he as a leader compared to even Rick or Negan? He is very different. His community, like we've said, is very different, and because of this, he seems very goofy to Carol. Like, Carol sees him as some kind of fake, a phony. The town that they're in, the kingdom, I should say, that they're in right now, Carol just does not see that as welcoming. She doesn't want to welcome that because it's not a lifestyle that she's normally used to. And King Ezekiel is very open to everybody, and he actually makes really good friends with Morgan, and we'll probably find out more about that as the show obviously continues. But King Ezekiel seems like a good guy, and we know from the comics that he is, but in general, talking about the show, he seems like first of all, a very good played actor playing him, and a very good character overall. And obviously with Negan as the enemy, Ezekiel also has a strong hatred for Negan and the Saviors. So we know that hopefully Morgan can tie everything together, and especially hopefully once Carol and Morgan find out about what happened with Negan and that whole scenario that we saw last week, maybe they can start to plan an attack, because of course, Rick probably wants to attack, but in his mind right now, he's just unsure of a lot of things, as we know from last episode. And having a huge army, I don't even know if the kingdom and the Alexandrians themselves could even defeat the Saviors, but we will have to see, of course, as time will tell. I don't even know if it's going to be at the end of Season 7. They might carry it on to Season 8. That's how long Negan is going to last, a very long time, I can tell you that much. But King Ezekiel is a very good character, and I really like how when they added this new character, usually when the show diverts into a new direction, like we saw in Season 4 when they added a bunch of characters, the show really takes off. And I feel with King Ezekiel here, he plays a really strong role in the kingdom, and I feel like this is going to push the show into new limits that we have never seen before. Let's take a look at this shot very quickly. Notice anything special about it? Well, if you remember back to Season 2, you definitely will, because this was the opening shot to Season 2 when we first saw that. And when I first saw that in this episode, obviously it's when they were feeding the pigs, and then they kind of mixed in a bunch of wide shots. And this one really stuck out, and I was like, that looks familiar. Oh, that's from Season 2. That's exactly right. And it's very interesting the way that it looks a little bit different now than it did back in Season 2. So obviously different things have happened since then. But they did get the same shot, which is very, very cool. And it's just a little thing to kind of bring you back to Season 2 when what things used to look like, comparing that shot and then comparing it to the new shot that they actually took now. I think that Morgan will be the character to kind of tie the Alexandrians and the people in the kingdom together, because of course we see Morgan having good relationships with King Ezekiel, and he obviously knows Rick very well, as we all know. And Carol's kind of too delusional at this point in time, and especially when she finds out, or if she finds out what Negan has done to her people, that she will find out, and she's just not going to really help the situation at all. But Morgan, on the other hand, I think that he's going to really communicate well with Ezekiel and with Rick, and he's going to kind of combine them together and get to know each other for the first time. And we see that happen kind of because we get our first glimpse of Ezekiel when he really knows the Saviors, and we find out that he obviously, of course, really hates the Saviors when he has to give the pigs to them. Now, one thing that I would like to mention here, of course, he's giving Negan their shit, in other words. But another thing I would like to point out is that the pigs were fed Walker parts. So, is that like a foreshadowing event as to something happening where the Saviors kill someone in the kingdom? Or, what is going to happen? Because, as we know, the Walkers, of course, we all know what the Walker meat is. And if you eat it, I don't know exactly what happens. I don't know if anyone's going to find out, but they did, I guess you could say, taint the meat. And so we don't exactly know what is going to happen with that at this point. But I think it's a foreshadowing event as to something that could happen in the future. Something where something happens to the kingdom. Obviously, I don't think it's going to be with Ezekiel. He's going to be with us for a while, like Negan is as well. But it's just something interesting to look at. Carol really needed that long talk from Ezekiel to kind of show her something inside of her that would make her kind of change her ways a little bit. Because as of right now, I think what's happening in her mind is that she's all shooken up from the Alexandria attack when she eventually split off and Morgan went to go find her. She doesn't know exactly what to think or do about that. And we know that she kept a tally or a journal of how many people she actually killed in the past, and she wants to really lessen the number. She wants to be more peaceful, sort of like how Morgan was trying to be peaceful and not kill anybody. I think she's trying to do that because she feels bad about herself in this world that it is. And she just can't live with the fact that she knows that she has to accept it, and with everything that's happened so far, but she can't accept it, and that's where she is. But Morgan, on the other hand, was peaceful, and now he kind of realizes that in certain situations, he has to kind of kill in order to survive. And so I think that the two characters are kind of contradicting each other, because Morgan is not trying to be like Carol, but he's more accepting of how Carol is, and Carol is trying to really not be like her old self and try and not be like she used to be. At least that's how I see it from my eyes. And I think that Ezekiel kind of put that into terms for her when he was trying to, tell her that he wants to help because he thinks that it's really good, and he wants to help because it makes him feel good inside that people are doing well, and he really wanted to speak out to her, and I really did enjoy that moment, that long talk that Ezekiel had with Carol. Throughout the whole episode, Ezekiel is offering Carol fruit for the majority of the part of this episode, and in the end scene, we get to see Ezekiel knock on Carol's door saying, "You gotta really try this fruit," with a smile on his face, kind of enlightening the show, bringing smile to even sort of her face, but obviously on his face. And I think that, that is in general a good thing, how he's enlightening the show and bringing a new light to it, and he's a great character and all. That the fruit itself is a symbolic piece of information, because we look at the fruit and Carol's not really accepting of this fruit, right? And it's like she can't accept that. She doesn't know what's going on around here. Like when they first, he brought her the fruit in the beginning when he first met Ezekiel, or she first met Ezekiel. She just would not accept the fruit. She would not even she barely even tried to look at the fruit. But then at the end of the episode, he's like, "You really got to try this fruit because it's really good." And she looks at him more of like, okay, she wants to accept it at this point. She's like refusing. So the fruit is kind of like her inner self. It's like a symbolism of her inner self, at least the way that I see it, like of her inner self trying to fight off whatever is inside of her and choose between one direction or the other direction about which way she wants to go about. Does she want to investigate more into the kingdom and see how everything's going to play out, maybe start to even live here? Or right now, of course, she's living outside of the kingdom because she's really trying to think and process her thoughts, and then maybe will she just go back to Alexandria on her own and not go with Morgan? Like, we don't know exactly at this point, but I think Ezekiel knows what he's doing, and the fruit was a really symbolic piece, at least from what I've seen in the episode. And I guess we can leave off on that. No, it wasn't like, of course, a very suspenseful or even intense episode as last week, but I felt like, first of all, we needed this episode to kind of brush back everything that happened last week, to kind of settle back, explore new areas of the show, and also, not every single episode of The Walking Dead has to have, mass amounts of walkers die or people die like the season 5 premiere just to be a good episode. And I really would like to stress that, because so many people think, well, this is boring because people are talking. Well, this isn't a good episode. And it's like, well, no, you really have to understand and pay attention to what's going on, because it really shows a lot of detail to other episodes in the future of the show. And of course, there have been episodes that have not been good and great, and I will openly admit that, but this episode I felt was really good because we got to learn more about the kingdom, Shiva, and King Ezekiel. So next week, we get to see Dwight looking out into a field of walkers. Of course, all the saviors are there. It's very interesting, and we get to find out more about what these saviors are, where they're located, what they do, and maybe we'll even get to see Daryl. Who knows? Because I think, obviously, of course, Negan did capture Daryl in the last episode, and he is now his, so maybe we'll see a little bit of Daryl in this episode. Of course, Dwight and Daryl have some contradictions between the two of them. But anyways, that's it for this episode. You can leave your comments down below about what you thought about this episode. And also, happy Halloween to everyone out there. Stay safe. And this is NinjaGeek. I'll see you on the next one. I'm out. And peace.